That's actually not a bad point at all.
Like maybe the hippo was just bigger itself.
A mega hippo?
A mega hippo.
Oof. Apparently, so another thing that I came across is, I think it's, however you say it in Hebrew, behemoth, something like that. The way that it's used in this context, there's a point of emphasis on the word. So it's like a super beast. It's like not just a behemoth, but a behemoth. There's this emphasis on the greatness of it.
Well, welcome to the No Grow Go podcast, a weekly discussion on discipleship, theology, and culture as we equip the saints for the work of ministry. And wow, do they need to be equipped in what we're talking about today?
We're going on part 2 of our series. What did I call it? Giants and Dragons, I think is what I'm calling this.
Oh, that's great.
I think it's Giants and Dragons. Let's first just introduce Leviathan and Behemoth. The question that we got was basically, are they real? Like, are these real creatures? If so, then what were they?
Right.
And so when we think of Leviathan and Behemoth, some of us think of Final Fantasy, and you saw some good descriptions, or you visually saw maybe something that matched best effort of actually drawing from scriptural context on what those might be. So what does Leviathan look like?
Well, according to Isaiah 27, and also according to Final Fantasy, which clearly not an inspired source, but I believe it borrowed from the inspired source.
Formational to Matt Voorhees, nonetheless.
It is formational. There's no question about that. It's just, in that day, the Lord was hard and great and strong. With his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent. Leviathan, the twisting serpent. He will slay the dragon that is in the sea. So that's the clearest description I think we have kind of what Leviathan looked like. He's in the sea. He is dragon-like. He is serpent-like. And if you play Final Fantasy, that's what you experience.
Yeah.
Leviathan always sends like a flood. That's like his power. He attacks enemies with his flood. So it's all sea related. Though I've seen and would be certainly open to there being more of a symbolic referencing of Leviathan in Isaiah.
Yeah.
Certainly as you continue to read what goes on after that. But if there are some symbolic uses of the description of Leviathan, I don't think that negates the fact that what we read in Job definitely seems to be a physical creature.
The Psalms also mention Leviathan.
They do.
In a couple of places.
Yeah, a couple.
So Psalm 104, this is verses 25 and 26. Here is the sea, great and wide, which teems with creatures innumerable, living things both small and great. There go the ships and Leviathan, which you formed to play in it. There's this kind of cool picture of the Lord just enjoying his creation. That there's this massive. This is a completely unrelated almost to what we're talking about, but we had a discussion recently about just kind of fear over climate change, and I heard somebody recently that was talking about they were a climate change activist that just kind of came to terms with, we don't really know what we're talking about, largely on the basis that the vast majority of Earth is water and we've barely explored the depths. And I think this psalm kind of highlights that same thing, that the sea is vast. Yeah. And Leviathan, according to the psalm, is some creature that the Lord made to play in this vast sea, which is an interesting thought. Now, it's possible that there's still some poetic way to interpret that, but in that verse, it does sound like a real being.
A creature made by God. Now, and that it's referenced, and people would say, "Oh, yeah, Leviathan. Well, we've heard of Leviathan."
Yeah.
It would seem that people would encounter this creature at some point.
Yeah.
Not, maybe not get a great glimpse of it, but they acknowledge that something really large was swimming around with them.
perhaps none live to tell the tale.
And perhaps that's true, actually.
Yeah.
Now I take that back.
Although to some pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean, where did the tales come from then? You know, somebody had to have seen it.
Somebody.
Psalm 74, verses 13 through 14 says, it gives us another picture of Leviathan. You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the sea monsters on the waters. This is interesting. Verse 14, you crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him food, or you gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. So we have, in certain parts of Scripture, Leviathan kind of is this massive creature. And then in the Psalms, or in Psalm 74, you crushed the heads of Leviathan.
Well, and how does he crush his heads while splitting the sea? So it's almost like just an aside comment to give gravity to, I'm assuming, parting of the Red Sea, salvation of God's people through dry land from the fleeing from the Egyptian army. But like the vivid imagery of like as he did that, he's cutting,
I wonder
cutting
if that
heads
is
off of Leviathan.
I wonder if that's, I'd have to study the passage. I wonder if that's related to creation or splitting the sea, divided the sea by your might. I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. But in any case, Leviathan is some mighty creature that is no problem for the Lord. I think that's what's being highlighted here is the might of God.
But you're intrigued by the heads.
Yeah. It's almost like the Hydra kind of thing, the multi-head Greek mythology Hydra.
That is not how Final Fantasy depicts Leviathan.
Well, then I'm wrong. But in Greek mythology, the Hydra, you cut off one head and two come in its place. I do appreciate where like whatever there's this exercise of sorts, I think, with our view of who the Lord is. If you can picture, the most powerful thing possible, in your imagination, like let your imagination go wild, just creating this crazy thing, to know that the Lord still dwarfs that thing and is still more powerful than that thing. Even the most powerful things in fantasy don't compare to the power of the Lord. I think this applies too to the most heroic, just, sacrificial, loving character that we can possibly imagine. It doesn't compare to the way in which the Lord is those things.
I do smile at the fact. I mean, superheroes are huge right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, all the movies, and there's some incredibly powerful beings that are imagined in those stories, and yet all of them are finite and limited, and our God is still infinitely greater, wiser, kinder, more loving, and powerful than all of those imagined beings. So that's a really cool thought.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, Leviathan, the picture. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Well, just when we get to Job, that'll be these creatures serve a unique purpose, I think, in the book of Job too.
Yeah,
and have pretty elaborate descriptions.
And so, if we treat Leviathan as a real thing, you're starting there with imagining what this thing would be based on kind of what's described in Scripture. It sounds like a sea creature, presumably a very large sea creature. I think serpent-like in the descriptions that we see. I have a hard time understanding that psalm I just read from Psalm 74. Hard time understanding it as not being having multiple heads on the same creature. There may be a case to be made for. I think sometimes we read things that referring to the subject Leviathan, heads of Leviathan, could just simply mean this creature in totality is crushed by God. But sounds like a multi-headed thing based on that psalm. What are your thoughts there?
Well, again, not going to argue, but there's some singular language in Job.
Yeah.
Putting a hook or a rope in his nose. If he's got multiple heads, you would need to have noses.
Lots of hooks, potentially.
Or pierce his jaw, not jaws.
Yeah.
So,
But the way that it's the way that it's phrased is the heads of Leviathan. That plural with the singular, just interesting implication.
Yeah, you could be just hooking one of the head's noses.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And getting a trophy. I don't know. So Leviathan. Maybe we describe now Behemoth.
Well, I just you want to describe them first, and then
I thought getting a picture of what they look like according to Scripture
sounds good
is helpful, and then kind of getting into were they real, or again were/are they real? So let's go Behemoth now.
Behemoth's easier. He only shows up in one place.
Yeah.
Here in Job chapter 40, behold Behemoth. Now, mind you, I mean, there's been chapters and chapters of discourse in Job, right? Initial, Satan has a request of God at the beginning of Job. Job is stripped of really everything that's valuable to him except his nagging wife. Mm-hmm. And then his friends come and sit with him for 7 days, and that was the best counsel that they gave him. And then they started explaining to him why he must have brought this on. And there's just chapters and chapters and chapters of that.
Yeah. And
then finally in chapter 38, God answers Job, who's like, God, what's going on? What's happened? And God, and these are incredible statements from God about where were you? I'm going to utter all these mysteries about creation and where it came from. And in that discourse, he brings up Behemoth and Leviathan. So this is chapter 40, verse 15. Behold, Behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold, his strength is in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff as a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. He is the first of the works of God. That's interesting. Let him who made him bring near his sword. For the mountains yield food for him as the wild beasts play. Under the lotus plants he lies, in the shelter of the reeds and in the marsh. For his shade the lotus trees cover him. The willows of the brook surround him. Behold, if the river is turbulent, he is not frightened. He is confident through Jordan, though Jordan rushes against his mouth. Can one take him by the eyes or pierce his nose with a snare? Just a fun, graphic description of this massive creature that God says some pretty fantastic things about.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we look at the description of that creature, what contemporary animal or I guess just real animal comes to mind?
Well, the animals that get assigned potentially to him, if we want to, make this fit our animal kingdom understanding, the hippo, the rhinoceros, the elephant. But I would argue that does not match this description.
Which is, I agree.
A few items might.
Yeah. It's interesting that the prevailing, known animal that gets viewed as behemoth that I've come across is the hippopotamus, as that's what this is talking about. What's the big problem with the hippo?
He's got a puny tail.
He's got a little tail. Yeah.
Just a little flea flicker.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Now, evidently, it is a pretty rigid little tail.
Oh.
This is something I'd learned as I was researching for this. Excuse me.
Well, is it stiff like a cedar? Apparently.
Apparently it is. This was news to me, actually.
Okay.
I've never felt a hippo's tail before.
I don't think we ever want to. That would be really dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting point, that the hippo is like one of the most dangerous animals.
I have heard that.
Yeah. Yeah. They are lethal. They're chaotic.
Aggressive. Yeah.
And so this is where, if we take a big step back, the way we interpret Job becomes really, really interesting in all of this. And Job, sort of in where it gets nestled in, it's in with the wisdom literature. There's a lot of the structure of Job is akin to poetry in much of it.
It's very poetic.
Yeah. And so I think it's worthwhile to talk about the different ways that the kind of the scholarly Christians have interpreted Job historically. There is some variety there.
Mm-hmm.
So the one being that it's a historical, I mean, I might be skewing some words, but a historical narrative told through a poetic lens.
Yeah, that's which we have in plenty of other places in Scripture.
Yeah.
Even to the point where you have like the historical event and then like a song that recounts the event right after it that is the poetic version of it.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think distinct to Job, though, is that almost the entirety of it is kind of in that poetic, where other passages we do see, event happens, and maybe I'm thinking of Mary's song, or I think, is it
Exodus 14 and then 15, they have the song. I want to say it's Judges 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. It's like the event in chapter 4, the song in chapter 5. As far as I can tell, Job begins with narrative, the first few chapters, and then launches into this massive poetry. And I think has some narrative at the end.
Well, what's interesting to me, again, putting on some different lenses, some different overlays on how we're looking at Job, is I think of Jesus's parable of Lazarus and the rich man. That
not Lazarus that comes out of the tomb, but
right,
Luke chapter 16. Yeah.
Yes, the poor man who was really neglected, and there's a lot that's described there that, again, to my Bible knowledge, that's the only other area where we kind of get that picture of these realms being described as very close together. There's some visibility. There's some. Now, I think that the point of that was to teach something to his audience. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much we're supposed to draw from that as a literal description of how that spiritual realm exists. But with Job, I was surprised to find there's a number of voices in kind of I think the most prominent name I came across was D.A. Carson, that doesn't explicitly say that it's purely didactic wisdom literature, but that Job was likely a real historical figure, and much of what we read throughout Job is didactic wisdom.
It is in the wisdom literature. I mean, it's Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. Job belongs to that collection of wisdom.
Yeah.
And serves a huge purpose in the canon of Scripture, because Proverbs this is how life works best ordinarily. Job is like the example of, but it doesn't always. Right. Sometimes you do the right thing and bad stuff still happens.
And that's the question, right? Is that I think one way I've seen it phrased is the argument that righteousness depends on reward, that Job is only a righteous man because God had blessed him so abundantly. And there are a few different kind of questions that are like that, where even the friends kind of come at this angle that because this has been taken away, you should curse God.
That was his wife, actually.
His wife, correct. Yeah, right. Yeah, great lady, great gal.
Yeah, great gal.
Yeah, you should curse God. And both sides of that argument are saying your circumstances really dictate who God is. You don't have the things that you should have, so curse him. Or the argument from the devil to God, he's only a righteous man because you have blessed him. They're both basically saying the same thing, that the righteousness of Job was dependent on the blessing that God had given him. That's the only reason that he was behaving the way that he did. And so the theme of Job, what gets unpacked throughout it, is really the continued goodness of God, regardless of circumstances of the individual. That's actually been one of my favorite passages to reference. Is Job finally kind of reaches this point of questioning God, it seems reasonable. You've got houses are collapsing, people are dying, livestock's dying. You've covered
all your
boils, kids are gone,
health,
losing everything. And the response of God is, you read a section of it. I've always appreciated that Job's response then, after getting kind of squarely put in his place, is to worship God. He doesn't say, well, that wasn't nice. He worships and gives him glory. And it's really the kindness of God that shows Job, here is who I am. And I think Job sees the greatness, the worthiness of the Lord. And seeing those themes, through the book, I think it's truth, and it's powerful truth. But the question that we're answering is not necessarily Job, but understanding how we read Job matters, because that kind of has to do with what we view Behemoth and Leviathan as.
Yeah, where do these fit in what's going on? I mean, shortly before Behemoth and Leviathan are mentioned, Job responds to God's initial interjection, and he says, "Behold, I'm of small account. Mm-hmm. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I've spoken once, I will not answer twice, but I will proceed no further." That Job's like, okay, I'm good, and God's like, oh no, we're not done yet.
Yeah,
let's keep going. There's more.
Yeah.
Behemoth.
Yeah.
Leviathan.
Yeah. So something interesting that I came across is we're going to get to now some extra biblical realities. The hippopotamus was representative of chaos in land form in different cultures. So I guess that I think it was the Egyptians that would depict their warriors or their pharaohs slaying a hippo as a sign of I'm conquering chaos. I'm defeating it.
Interesting.
And I think the same is true of Leviathan, that where hippo represented chaos on land, Leviathan represented chaos in the sea.
Sure.
And we would say chaos, terror, violence. I think that if it is in fact a hippo that's being referenced there, we have yet to grab a hippo's tail to confirm if it's stiff as a cedar. But if we can take care of that, that would help a lot. Maybe we have a zoologist that can speak to.
But how okay, from what you surmise, how long is a hippo's tail?
Oh man, over under?
Yeah.
If we're I feel like now I'm trying to estimate how big a hippo glute is.
I mean,
what's the reference point?
Let's say 3 feet.
I've never stood next to a hippo. That 3 feet.
You think it's shorter than that?
See, that I don't have any reference point for hippos. I've never stood next to one. They seem massive.
So you think it's longer than 3 feet?
No. I'm confused. I'm lost. I don't know. Because initially I was thinking less than a foot, but then you say 3 feet.
Okay.
Hippos are really big.
We're gonna say 1 cubit.
I have a supercomputer right here.
A foot and a half. You check.
I'm going to look it up.
But my point is, why would you say it's as stiff as a cedar, which is a tree?
As stiff as, not as big as, not as long as.
But why would you say as stiff as a twig or as stiff as something smaller?
Well, twigs aren't stiff.
A branch, then, mind you.
So according to my interweb search, a hippo tail is about 1.8 feet.
Yeah.
1.8 feet.
Okay. I want to interject something that I think can be relevant. When does the story of Job take place? And many would say that he's somewhere between Genesis 11 and Genesis 12. He's kind of like a contemporary of sorts with Abram. So this is still very early world, people are still living fairly long, if I remember correctly.
I'm sorry, I'm reading about hippo tails and it's wild. Continue talking about
Let me
Job.
finish my thought, and then I cannot wait to hear what you have to share. At the end of Job, it says, and after this, Job lived 140 years. So some people think he lived to 140. Some people think he was already well-aged because he'd already had all these kids. So maybe he's 100. 140 years additional goes by. He lives to be 240 years old. Job has an extremely long life. Now, he gets unique blessing from God, probably, yes. Yeah. But are we still kind of in the realm where things still lived longer than they do today, kind of as the maybe degeneration of the effects of removing the greenhouse effect after the flood and that sort of thing caused shortened lifespans and whatnot? Could some of these animals just benefited from some extra long life?
Yeah.
And maybe what right now is a 1.8 foot tail.
That's actually not a bad point at all.
Like maybe the hippo was just bigger itself.
A mega hippo?
A mega hippo.
Oof. Apparently, so another thing that I came across is, I think it's, however you say it in Hebrew, behemoth, something like that. The way that it's used in this context, there's a point of emphasis on the word. So it's like a super beast. It's like like not just a behemoth, but a behemoth. There's this emphasis on the greatness of it, which, if it's symbolic, makes sense as kind of representative of the greatness of the beasts. That I'll circle back to. But if it's literal, then maybe it really is a massive. That would be, arguably the most terrifying creature that the world has ever known is a mega hippo.
Does a hippo eat grass?
They eat watermelons. I've seen that.
I'm checking.
They're herbivores.
Yeah.
But they also, if you end up in a hippo's mouth, you're done. You get squished. Can I read you about the hippo tail?
I can't wait.
Read you about the hippo tail?
Yes, hippos are primarily herbivores.
Yeah.
Feed almost exclusively on short grass.
There you go. So I asked if a hippo's tail is stiff. Yes, a hippo's tail is short, stiff, and muscular, acting like a rigid, flattened paddle designed for muck spreading. They spin this tail rapidly from side to side to break up and fling feces across a wide radius, which serves to mark their territory and establish dominance. So a mega hippo, I don't know how many feet longer that tail would be, but it dominates you by flinging its muck all over the place.
You just introduced feces to the podcast.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to, in the spirit of accuracy.
Thank you.
Muck spreading.
Thank you.
I'm not going to lie. I'm actually becoming rapidly convinced that this is a mega hippo.
Okay.
That's my favorite argument at this point. If it's a real thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Coming into this conversation, I was going to kind of go with maybe there was some residual dinosaur remnant or something like that. More, I know we don't call them brontosaurus anymore. That's like some dated term.
Yeah. I can't say that anymore.
I don't even know if brachiosaurus is accurate. Whatever
something saurus.
With most current version is, but like a big tail. Cedar tail.
Yeah. None of this muck spreading tail. Something cedar-like. Stiff like a cedar. We got to remember, stiff like a cedar.
I understand. Yes.
Which evidently is fitting for a hippo's tail.
As you have enlightened us with.
It's incredible. Yeah. Okay. So I think that maybe here's my question to you is at this point, what is your position on hippopotamus and Leviathan? Are they real?
You said hippopotamus. Did you mean behemoth?
I'm just assuming it's a mega hippo now.
You've made your position very clear.
Is the mega hippo real? Okay, Behemoth and Leviathan. Do you think hippos are real? Not
Yes.
the question we're answering.
Do they have stiff tails?
Yes. Apparently they do.
My thought about both these creatures at some level is we are still in a time period that
Why'd you say it twice?
I just said it funny. I didn't
You said it totally normal. We're in a time,
really?
You said we're in a time period.
Period. I usually emphasize it differently. I don't know. It just sounded weird. That both of these creatures, in part, could be the fruit of how close they are to the flood, and I mean, lifespans start to shorten rapidly from this point on. But still, people are living 240 years, 175 years. Moses lives to 120. So maybe there were just some conditions that allowed for these creatures that God made to grow and get extraordinarily large. And we have mega hippos and giant eels.
Okay.
What were they in The Princess Bride?
Oh, the shrieking eels.
Shrieking eels.
Yeah.
But
Those
bigger.
are scary.
Yeah.
Oh man, those terrified me as a kid. Eels. Interesting.
Just for the serpentine factor.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask is what's the mini version of Leviathan? Officially, it's an eel. So this is an eel and a hippo.
Or they could have just be unique creatures that God made that have lived their lifespan. Or maybe Leviathan is just cowering in the part of the sea that we don't explore anymore.
Nessie is Leviathan.
Now, isn't that in a lake?
Yeah, the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah.
But after the flood, what happened was she ended up in a lake.
Right.
Rehomed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I do think that there's merit to, much like the Nephilim conversation, different environment globally, longer lifespans. This might even be attached to dinosaurs. I think that some have argued the longer lifespans allowed for these lizard-like creatures to just both live and grow longer over a longer span of time. And I've heard some that have argued that both of these might in fact be kind of the prehistoric dinosaur era creature that could be extinct. We've discovered some crazy things in the ocean, right? I mean, imagine the first person to discover like an octopus or squid. What horrifying creature to discover. We'll circle back to aliens with those, right? Some people actually think that those are alien life forms. I reject that, but they're bizarre.
Squids?
Yeah. There's no other creature like a squid or an octopus, and they're very smart. They're very, very smart.
Are they?
Yeah, incredibly smart.
I don't
the
think...
octopus is. I don't know if the squid is, but the octopus is.
Would you rather get attacked by a squid or a shark?
Oh my gosh. I think sharks are much dumber, and they're more like just a funny little water dog.
You think you'd have a better chance of surviving a shark attack?
Yeah,
punch
and
him in the
I don't
nose.
know what a squid's gonna do to me. How do they end you? They've got like a beak, don't they?
Oh yeah, they could strangle you.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Is the variety of ways that a squid could end
They'd
me.
kill you much slower, I'm sure.
Yeah.
While you're in their clutches.
And they'd probably pull you right up to that massive eye.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
just stare at you while you fade into oblivion. This is dark. That's awful.
That is a reminder, though, of the beast outside of the mines of Moria in Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of a squid-like.
The Kraken-like, squid-like
yeah,
thing.
no,
Yeah.
And he had his creepy mouth that he was trying to pull him into. Yeah.
Right.
Be horde.
Yeah, but I think like backgrounded in reality, the ocean is a crazy thing. Like there are so many different living things in there that I don't think we've discovered or The depths we haven't explored.
Is it the anglerfish that has a little light?
A little light in front, yeah. And the big old...
Yeah, just a nasty looking thing.
Yeah, big teeth.
I mean, God is incredibly creative. That He's in places where, for most of human history, we didn't even have the capability of visiting and seeing these things. And here it is.
You know what's interesting that I'm just, this thought is popping in my mind as we're talking about these things. It's interesting to me that the most beautiful of God's creations thrive in light, and the most horrifying thrive in darkness. I think there's a real parallel. There are so many parallels, I think, in God's creation that kind of exhibit, like, this is goodness, this is evil.
Well, the water was always, think of creation, right? So creation, He separates the waters. Well, first of all, He creates light, separates it from the dark.
Yeah.
But then He separates the waters, and then He separates the land from the water. And the water is always this impediment to life, this impediment to flourishing. And so it has to be reformed and moved out of the way and separated in order for life to appear. So, I mean, just to your point, that, and that's how the seas are pictured, this dangerous place. It's threatening. People lose their lives in the sea. You can't drink it.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. A lot of, like, the literal imagery we see in the world around us demonstrates something about God's creation and character. I think if we get back to the question of Leviathan and Behemoth, I'll let you go first. What's your official position? Are they real? Are they real creatures being talked about, Behemoth and Leviathan?
Yes. I'm not saying that they aren't referenced. Perhaps I'm thinking of the Isaiah passage in particular in a symbolic way. But I think in Job, the point is that these are massive creations by God that He has control over. He made them. And that's part of Him making His argument to Job, is that I did this. I thought Him up. He does what I say, all these things to assert to Job, I have the right to order the universe the way that I have, and I've done you no wrong. And there are things going on in this universe and in this situation that you're experiencing right now that you don't understand. And I don't have to tell you. So, that's how it factors into the argument. These are real creatures that Job would have had a picture would have come to mind when God mentioned these. Otherwise, why would He mention them? It would not make any sense to Job. This is communication to him. And he knows something about them. Even if he hadn't seen them personally, there's some tale that he's heard about these creatures that was familiar, that was part of a relevant point that God was making to him. Real creatures. Now, whether they were mega hippos, I can't say. But
come on.
But it's possible. I'm nearer to that position with your stiff tail.
The stiff helicopter tail.
Yes. Now you have to.
Yeah. So I think that where I am landing with this is that they are real creatures that have been exaggerated in didactic wisdom literature to paint a massive point. I think that's where I land. I'm more and more convinced that the behemoth, the thing that's supposed to come to mind, is a hippo, a mega hippo, in fact. And I think Leviathan, just consistent with, like, again, legends that exist out there in different cultures of these massive, terrifying sea creatures of chaos and destruction. If you've got those two things, like, one of them rules the depths of the sea, the other one seems to rule the land as these chaos machines. And if you put things in the context of Near Eastern religion at the time, consistent with the way that the hippo was portrayed as a creature of chaos. And what's interesting is in order to have power, you had to kill chaos. You had to destroy it. That's not what God's saying. He's saying, I rule over this.
Yeah.
That I am supreme over this chaos. And so I think to take a real creature, to exaggerate it, and to paint this like overwhelming sense of this should be something that strikes fear in everything. There's nothing like this that exists. And so for the Near Eastern religions, their only hope was for them to kill that thing and to overcome chaos. And God's saying, I don't fear this thing. I made this thing. Mm-hmm. I am sovereign over this thing. And I just think that perspective is powerful. It's consistent with the Lord's character. I think I view Job as a historic person, kind of nested into didactic wisdom literature. We're supposed to learn wisdom from this text. Mm-hmm. And the spectrum on what's literal and what's poetry is, I was just surprised at how many people I read who landed at very different places in the kind of Reformed Baptistic backgrounds. But it makes sense to me that these mythological sounding creatures were exaggerated in order to emphasize the point. It could have just been the thing as it really existed, but you picture, if there was, let's say, a hippo and an eel, or a hippo and some water dinosaur of some sort.
Giant squid, maybe.
Giant squid. Terrifying. You put those in front of you, those are plenty scary.
Yeah.
But if you emphasize them, as Behemoth seems to be emphasized, to like, no, this is like the I wonder, there was a term in the Job passage. Was it the first of God's created? What was that?
Yeah, that was of the Behemoth. That's what he said.
And I don't think, is that literal, or is that meant to be in a comment on the order of like the hierarchy almost? Like this is top dog. This is top of the food chain kind of emphasis. If you take these massive creatures and you emphasize them to the point of being supreme over all other creatures, that just elevates that to a whole new level of chaos, of terror, of power, and God is greater still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is, again, through a life that's gone through incredible suffering. I even appreciate looking at the life of Job. It's kind of this microcosm of the, maybe we can just say the church, that you've got God's people that he chooses, that he saves, who encounter great suffering. And but at the end of that, there's incredible reward. There's glory. And of course, Job died, but to your point on his lifespan, the blessing he experienced in life was greatest in that later span, that everything was multiplied that he had before. Now, I think part of why I can appreciate the didactic wisdom genre overlay of Job is it'd be easy to feel like that's just minimizing like the lives that were lost before, the children, the wives, the everything. I don't think that it's just this like kind of 2-for-1 replacement that, well, you lost that one, let me give you 2 more and all's good now. I don't think that's the point of Job. I think it's really illustrating the losses that we experience in life. The Lord is abounding in steadfast love and blessing his people in the life that is to come. And I just appreciate that about, I think, the story of Job. You have a man going through great suffering, and the faithfulness, the power, and the providential care of the Lord being demonstrated all throughout that.
And I think the true blessing that Job receives in his whole journey is not what comes at the very end, but what he says in response to, after God addresses him, he says in 42 verse 5, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. And at some level, that's an increased sense of God. He experienced God in a way that he hadn't before. And in reality, that's when our suffering leads us to lean into God. That's what we get more of an appreciation and awareness of who he is, what he's like, who he wants to be in our life. And that was the real gift that Job got. And I don't want to speak for Job, but I'm going to speak for Job and say, in glory, when we meet him and we ask him, Job, was it worth it that you went through all that you did to experience God the way that you did on the other side? Was that worth it? And Job's going to say, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, does that mean I don't wish that I could have also had my family back and not had to go through all that? Yes, but I wouldn't trade what I got on the other side for anything. And
to know all the more, who am I to question God? Who am I to question God's sovereign plan? I think in glory, that level of kind of ascertaining that knowledge, like I have no right, capacity, or desire to question God's plan for my life. Now that I see the other side of all of that, to your point, yeah, it doesn't minimize the. But that's interesting. The question that you're kind of posing is Job in glory. Just on this side of heaven, he reached a point of submission and trusting the Lord. And
we could have asked him back then, but
all the more. And
I'm just saying that's where we'll get to see him again, is glory.
Yeah.
We won't get a chance to ask him that until then. That was my point. But if we could go in a time machine and go back to Job after this point, I think we could get the same answer.
Yeah. Love it.
Maybe
he could tell us about the hippo, the mega hippo too.
What
did you picture, Job?
Yeah.
When this was described to you?
Yeah.
I learned so much
Good
about
thoughts.
hippo tales in this.
And now our audience has learned that as well.
That's our next series, Hippo Tales. But it'll just be stories about hippos. That's all we're getting into. I want to get to questions.
Okay. A few more of those. Okay,
that have
great.
nothing to do with hippos.
Good.
So here we have a couple of questions from our form, available in the links, available in the description, wherever you're listening to this podcast. The first question I want us to answer is, as highly visible leaders, does the constant spotlight and need to be on wear on you and your family? If so, what can your church family do to ease that stress? I think it's a very considerate question to be asked. I appreciate that. What are your thoughts?
It is a burden. But I have found in general, it's actually a grace in that perhaps in a different profession as a follower of Jesus, I could delude myself that in certain environments I don't have to represent Jesus. I'm not afforded that luxury. I feel like I don't know as many people as know me. So I never know when I go out, who knows me, who recognizes me. And so I think there's a grace in just kind of a passive accountability that is always present. I think I've had to battle not letting that turn into a fear of man. I want to genuinely be who I am and not have to feel like I'm putting on a performance or something like that whenever I'm out. But yeah, and I think that the church can help, and I love that aspect of the question, by just treating us like normal people.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that we're men who are still in process, still struggle in our faith, who aren't always going to do things right. We'll say dumb things, we'll do dumb things, and just we will endeavor by the grace of God to be consistent and mature, but we won't be perfect. So we'll need grace when we're not perfect, and support, and I would just and prayer too. Just I really value when someone comes up and says, "Hey, I know how hard it must be to do what you do. We pray for you regularly."
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you processed that spotlight as well, being the pretty one on stage?
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot. The pretty one. I think you were saying something that, there's a value there in being reminded of the standard that leaders are held to, that pastors are held to, and it's an appropriate standard. This doesn't come unfairly.
No,
this is right.
It's part of the responsibility.
Yeah, it's part of the responsibility, and I mean also it's part of the calling. That this is something that I think is humbling. It's an honor and it's a joy, and the pressure is there. To the point of the question, I think I've thought more about my kids lately, just as they're getting a little bit, my daughter especially reaching more of the stage of. I just think she'll experience those pressures differently. You know, my son is still really little, so I am mindful that there have been times where, as much as people can feel like they have unique access to me, and I think that's right, sometimes people can feel that way toward my family, and I want to guard them, that they're one of my first priorities, and this isn't something that they're called into in the same way.
Right.
So I think not putting undue pressure on them is really, really important. And I'll protect that as best I can going forward. I mean, I think that if a child feels uncomfortable, then I'm just going to take him out of the situation and not have any real concern of how that affects somebody else. As heartless as that might sound, it's really easy in some settings to sort of start to compromise on, like, well, I don't want to offend somebody. I don't want to. And if the option is, in doing the right thing, I might offend this person, or for the sake of not offending them, I might put my kids in a spot where they feel unsafe or vulnerable, or I'm going to choose my kids every time.
Yeah.
And my wife every time. I think I was still trying to think of the other. What can your church family do to ease that stress? I feel so grateful. I mean, even just this question is evidence that we've got a great church family around here.
Oh, yeah.
We have people that, I think some of this is just God's grace, and I don't think either one of us grew up in a culture or background that had the whole kind of man of God syndrome thing, where the pastor is like elevated above other men, and he's, I think that's sick and it's wrong and it's destructive. But I think there are people that grew up in that kind of culture, and they sort of assume I have to really be better than everybody. And not only does the pastor feel that way, but the people around them adopt that same mentality, that
they can project that onto you, and it can kind of almost, they can create some unhealthy ways that they relate, or unhealthy expectations. Yeah.
Yeah. And our people just don't do that. I think, in the community group setting, talk about anything, whatever's going on. I think that just being a man, again, want to honor the role that we're in, but just being a man with other men is really valuable. I think I've experienced a lot of kindness from different people in our church, and I mean, there've been funny times that I'm remembering this conversation is bringing up, I was briefly junior high youth pastor, and there can be this kind of missing the kinds of work that get done in pastoral ministry, like the week. It's possible to be removed enough from the life of your pastor that you don't see all of the busyness that gets kind of filled in throughout the week and over the weekend. There are benefits to the role in that there are seasons where there's unique flexibility for sure, but there's also, you're never off. There's a very 24/7 aspect to the role. And I think that's right. Again, that comes with it. But I remember I had a kid ask me when I was actually junior high youth pastor, and I was filling in for the worship role, and I was kind of on the later end of our young adults ministry. That was a really busy time. We were also expecting our first. So just kind of getting in the headspace of, I'm going to be a new dad. I'm trying to, and I was new in ministry too. This was in my first, year of full-time ministry. And one of the students of the junior high ministry said, "So what do you do for work?" I just thought, how do you not know? This is my job. Not that I was upset at him or anything, but he was just like, he could not believe that, the 1 hour that I was there on Sunday mornings counted as a job. And I had to tell him, this isn't a 1 hour thing. There are a lot of other things that a pastor does. And depending on what role you fill too, youth ministry, man, I look at what our youth guys do and take care of. They do a ton.
It's a ton.
They are so, man, I would encourage our congregation, love on those guys for sure. Bless them, encourage them. There are so many people, again, that already do that. But just seeing the labor that the pastoral staff and directors, that this question was extended, I think, to pastors and directors. A lot of people that just do a lot of work that goes unseen. And so asking these questions is fruitful and helpful and a blessing. I'm just encouraged, I think, reflecting on the question itself.
A lot of jobs are like this, but I tell people that we have a flexible schedule, but a rigid responsibility. I can move my schedule around on any given day. There's fixed pieces, of course, meetings and things that I have to be getting done at certain times, but Sunday's always coming.
Yeah.
And the leadership needs are always there. I can go on vacation, but it's not like those things go away. It's a different kind of pressure. Mm-hmm. There's some people who have a job where their schedule is really rigid. They have to clock in, clock out, but there's really nothing to take home. All their work is just done by the time they walk out the door. That's not how pastoral ministry is.
Yeah.
And so, it's a unique pressure. But as I've heard people in other environments say, that the pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
And because we are dealing with weighty things and things of God and things that matter and change lives. And so it is a pressure, but it's a privilege to bear it.
And it's also, the role of pastor is something that I think one of the requirements to be a pastor is that you would also desire it. Mm-hmm. And I would just affirm that to our people too, that mm-hmm. we do want to be doing this job.
Yes.
There's a desire to be here, and and so all sides of that are appreciated. It's a calling, it's a desire. We love the work we get to do. There are plenty of challenges that come with it, and again, thank you to just the people that ask this question and want to care for us and look out for us. Last question. I think this is a really good one. This one, let's see. I'm trying to see if this person wants to be anonymous. They are fine being named. This is from Nick. He rides bikes. I've said that I won't say last name for the
I see.
application.
I see.
So you know which Nick this is.
I do.
He probably wouldn't mind if I said his last name, but I'll leave it off the record right now. Nick says, What's the best way I can be an ambassador for Christ while working in the public sector or in government? It's the best way I can be an ambassador for Christ while working in the public sector.
Best is like hard to say precisely without knowing more about the dynamics and the context, but just the first thing that popped into my head is to be a public Christian, to carry your faith as something that isn't a secret. I will take opportunities to mention things that connect to how my faith is expressed, whether it's going to church on the weekend, talking about where I'm going tonight, if it's my Bible study group or my discipleship group, just salting your conversation with that. And then, just also thinking about how do I do my work in a distinctly Christian way?
Yeah.
And that looks different in a different work environment, but take law enforcement, for example, like maybe how I speak to somebody or treat them, even if I'm having to exert force and do something that doesn't seem very kind, I can still be loving in how and love can be giving somebody a beating because they deserve it and they need to go to jail and think about what they've done. Mm-hmm. That's not unloving. That can be very just and helpful and a pivot point in someone's life. And I'm not the best person to speak into everybody's work context to say, this is how you should do your job in a distinctly Christian way. How do other Christians in that field come together in community and say, how do we do this in a way that would reflect Jesus? And again, obviously when you see God working in people's lives and you have opportunities, share the truth, share the gospel. But I'm thinking more of, where's the starting point? And I think the starting point is being public and open about your faith and do your job in a distinctly Christian way that either makes people mad at you or gets their attention and makes them curious. I mean, sometimes we can be a Christian in an ungodly environment and we actually get the hostility of the world because we make them look bad.
Yeah.
Not that that's the intention, but when light clashes with darkness, sometimes there's some fireworks.
Yeah, yeah. And for whatever reason, they get mad, right? I mean, it so long as it's a right reason. Because I think I remember hearing somebody telling a story about a Christian they worked with, and they really didn't like him because they talked a lot about Jesus, but they didn't do their work very well. And that became a reflection on, so this is what a Christian is like. And I think if we're going to do everything unto the glory of the Lord, that includes our job. So
totally
be the best you can be where you work. I think, just stepping into whatever the thing is with intention, with purpose, and say, I'm gonna give this my best. I'm gonna be present for the people I work with.
Yeah.
I think that treating our life following Christ as something that fills every aspect of our life. It's not just that we go to church on Sundays and then we're a Sunday Christian, or we have small group and so we're Christian then too. But I follow Jesus every moment of every day. And I like your point about just finding opportunity in conversation, and that can be I've talked with friends about if I talk about the things I do outside of work. One of the things I do is I work out with friends from church. Really easy for that to be, oh, you go to church. The connection is there instantly. I think we've had this conversation before. Just this can also be kind of a test on how active are you with the body of Christ. And I know the person asking this question, I know he's plenty active, and there's lots of opportunity to talk about the different things that he does that are access points that they bear testimony, I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus. And we've talked too about, if there's opportunity to put something on your vehicle or what you wear or the way your home is observed by other people, on your doorposts, so to speak. There's just a lot of, I was talking with another guy recently, and he shared this great story about someone from his work. He's retired now, but years later, this person circled back around to him because he knew he was a Christian this whole time. And this person is now a follower of Christ. They weren't as they worked with this friend of mine. And to live your life in such a way where people know you're a Christian. You never know what that looks like in the decades to come. It could be 10, 15, 20 years later that somebody you work with now who knew you're a Christian because you just commented on it. Maybe you were just kind to them. Maybe you encouraged them. It doesn't always have to be that we're saying the only way that I'm having a successful witness is if I make somebody come to church on Sunday. That's not true. There's a lot of other interactions you can have with somebody that are really meaningful and valuable. And just being a real person with people and them knowing you follow Jesus and being ready and even praying, Lord, give me opportunity to share the gospel with this person I work with. Sometimes that's a yes, and sometimes this is all part of the process of kind of cultivating the soil where the gospel will be planted someday for this person's life and bring them to new life. I think that there's a lot of, just finding opportunity, being strategic. Great insight too on finding other believers in your in that sphere, your workplace, that you can just build a relationship with, and other people are going to observe that, and they'll to make it a priority that people would know you follow Jesus, and see what comes out of that.
Yeah,
valuable.
Great point.
Yeah. Well, this series has been fun. Nephilim, Behemoth, Leviathan, mega hippos, and cedar tails, and
tell us in the comments what you guys think about the Nephilim.
Yes.
Or your positions on Behemoth and Leviathan, and we'll see how they square up.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. Our next series we're going to get into, we're looking at really just discussing Calvinism and kind of the different oppositions within and against. And I think this comes from a question that was asked before we even started our first episode. And we said, you know what, this is important. We want to give this the appropriate amount of time.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a multi-episode series. We're going to be real intentional and as in-depth as we can, as serves the purpose well. So continue to submit questions, listener. If you've hung around this long to the end of the episode, the reason you've been one camera is our switcher had to leave and make a phone call. So thank you for sticking around. Great job. And if you're listening to the audio,
you have no idea what he's talking about.
You don't know any different anyway,
Mm-mm.
and you're missing out on Matt's handsome mug.
And my reader glasses I had to use in order to...
You're getting old.
Use my Bible.
Older and older. Mm-hmm. So follow along, listen to the podcast, because who knows how many episodes we have left.
I'll be replaced.
As we all will.
Well, thank you for listening to the No Grow Go podcast. We're so glad you joined us today. I want to invite you to help us with this mission of equipping the saints for the work of ministry, and there are a couple ways you can do that. One, you can navigate to the notes where you'll find a link to a Google form where you can submit questions that we would love to answer. The other thing you can do is you can like this, you can comment on it, you can leave a review, and of course you can share it with your friends. We release episodes every Monday, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here next week.